xRhythms.
Hi and welcome to today's video. We're going to be interviewing and talking to Joy all about her book. In this book, she shared her story and how she's just been so exposed and seen this world of trafficking and has had the privilege of talking to so many beautiful different souls about their experience in the industry. We're going to hop straight into that interview and I'm excited for you to watch this. So much for tuning into this interview that we have here, the first ever interview where I'm interviewing Joy Farrington, who's actually one of our contributors here on xRhythms, and I'm so excited to have you. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be your first interviewee.
It's an exciting thing. And Joy, she actually wrote this amazing book here. I really enjoyed reading it. It's called Broken by Beauty, where she has a big passion for justice and sexual purity, and also has a great message along with that, which I'm just going to let her talk all about in this interview. One thing that really struck me in your book is you talked about how you were writing these journal entries from the age of 15 and how everything that happened in your life from that young age just kind of like all led and impacted what it is that you're doing now at the moment, which I found so incredible. I mean, you got funding from Glamour magazine as well for an idea that you got when you were 15. Can you just tell us about how you really, like, how your experiences when you were young just kind of like empowered you and led to you doing what you're doing right now?
Absolutely. You know, I had a moment earlier this year when I realized that nothing in our life is wasted. So I found myself in, I was actually at a conference with my husband, and there were several people who were represented at that conference who were connected to various parts of my life, like people that I knew from back in the UK, others from like various places in the US and elsewhere in the world actually. And I had this moment, it was like this convergence of people from different parts of my life. And it was kind of mind-blowing. It's like, wow, this is wild. But God really spoke to me in the midst of that and said, Joy, nothing is wasted in your life. Like everything that happens, you know, even the stuff that is negative, that we kind of look back and it's like, oh man, that was a really tough season. It's not, God doesn't waste those things. He is able to redeem all of that stuff and actually feed it into the purpose of our lives. And so that's something that I have realized from my own life. You know, when you talk about some of the things that I dreamt about when I was a teenager, you know, they're not, sometimes I think when we're young, and I think this is something that others can say over us too, is, oh, you're young and, you know, maybe that's a phase and, oh, you'll probably grow out of that. And, you know, just things are different. Like when you get to, you know, being an adult and living in the real world, like, and we make statements that discount the dreams that actually God has put in our hearts and stuff. And you know, there are things that can become phases. Like I played the flute when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and I went to a gig last night and there was this amazing flautist playing. I was like, what? I don't play it anymore. I had it somewhere in the box, but I haven't picked it up in years. And I'm, you know, and so that there's that part of me is like, oh, that was a part of my past, but let's be real, it's not really a part of my present anymore. You know, there are things that that are seasonal. Yeah. But when you talk about like how some of the things from my teenage years have impacted my present, absolutely. Like God has not wasted any of those things. And, you know, as a family, we lived in different areas when I was growing up, different cities. And my parents, they raised me to love God. And so God's always been a part of my life and a part of my journey. And so I recognize that the choices that they made in leading us as a family impacted my heart too, you know. And we lived in some areas when I was growing up that were considered red light districts, and I think, you know, your environment can influence your heart too, influence the passions that God puts in you. And so there were things that I was exposed to as a teenager that opened my eyes to injustices that I then wanted to do something about.
I think what you touched on there is such a beautiful thing about nothing is wasted, and part of your journey, nothing is wasted. And in fact, like as a Christian as well, we read in the Bible and we see how God says that he can turn situations that are not so good into great situations. And I thoroughly believe that, and your life is just a great example of that. How you, in the environment that you lived in, and you took all of that and it basically drove this passion in you to want to help people in that environment, which is so beautiful. And one quote that I really liked, we talked about a little bit before this, was that you called yourself an international treasure hunter. Can you tell us about what that means to you, and why those specific words?
Yeah. Well, okay, I have to be really honest. I did steal that from somebody that I met. Who I met her. I used to work in a tea shop in Liverpool, and I met this lady, and she gave me her business card, and it said International Treasure Hunter, and I was like, I'm taking that. So I think that the language of that is stunning, and so this friend of ours called Kevin Dedman, and he came up with this thing called treasure hunting, where it's kind of a tool that you can use in meeting other people and in sharing God's heart with them. And it's this idea that God gives you almost like signs, I guess, or like highlight certain things about people, and then you go looking for them. So it's like this idea of like, okay, I'm going to pray for a few minutes and ask God to like give me treasure to look for. So that could be, for example, a red hat, or a t-shirt that says I love New York, or just like random things, and it's it's not taking anything too seriously, but it's then if you spot those things, if you spot someone wearing an I love New York t-shirt, maybe God wants you to go and speak to them, and maybe he has something for you to encourage them with, right? And so that idea of like we can find treasure in people all the time wherever we go. And there's another guy, Chris Valentin, who came up with this language of when he was talking about the prophetic. It is this idea that we get to call out the gold within people. And of the book that I wrote, I talk a lot about God's heart for those who've been sexually exploited, and how a lot of what I do is encountering people in different areas of the sex industry and loving on them, and helping to either help them exit the industry or helping them understand who they are and their true identity. And a lot of that involves calling out the gold within them. We can all relate to that. I think we've all had those times, seasons, maybe you're in this right now as you're listening to this interview, where there is gold within you that no one's called out yet. And I just want to take a second to acknowledge that and say, you are a stunning child of God. You are a man and woman that God has crafted and created, and there is deep gold within you. Are precious. The dreams within you, the promises that have been spoken over your life are stunning, and they are not forgotten. And I just even feel like there are people who you've been dreaming about things, and maybe things have been spoken over you to discount the very destiny of God in your life. And I just want to take a second to just say that I see you, that God sees you, that you are seen and you are known, and your dreams are precious, your life is precious, and it is worth living. I hope that answers that. But I think it's this idea of treasure hunting is going after the gold within people, and having eyes to see beyond the exterior, beyond some of the external behaviors, and taking the time to acknowledge that and say, I see you. Pull that out of you, that you are worthy, you are beautiful, you are precious. You have these skills, you have these abilities.
That is such a special thing. I'd never really heard that before, and that's why I thought it was so nice to just touch on that with you and to just really just understand what that means, because I feel like that can apply to everything, and that's something that we can do every single day with anyone that we see. And you mentioned a lot in your book about how you planted a lot of seeds, and I saw that that's one way that you planted many seeds with the people that you did encounter. and it's definitely something that I'm going to take on, and I'm going to start planting those seeds and be an international treasure hunter as well.
I love that.
So what do you think is one thing that you wish that you'd known when you was 15, 16 years old?
So many things.
Yeah.
I think one thing I've thought about is that, and I say this about several things, it's like the beauty of hindsight, but there are things that I remember being really stressed out about when I was 15, that now I just wouldn't be. So I think it can be easy to worry sometimes, like, and this kind of goes across so many different things, but like the things that would consume my mind would be like, does this guy like me? And am I seen? Am I known? Am I pretty enough? Am I worthy enough? I would spend a lot of time like worrying over those things, and now a lot of this, I think, comes down to understanding our identity and who we are. And when we are able to craft that very foundation within ourselves, there's a strength that is built from that place to where we are then able to walk out in confidence, and it gives us actually greater freedom to then pursue the dreams of our heart. And so I look her in the face and say, don't worry about those things as much as you do, and actually take the time to pour into her the identity that I now know I own and I have. Because I think there is so much that we are told in society now too. There are so many lies, really, that we are told about who we are as young men and young women, and actually what is the truth. And I think we're in a culture where truth is very fluid. There's a lot of language like, speak your truth, what's your truth? And actually there is only one truth. And when we can secure our foundation in truth, it enables us to then walk out in who we are as individuals. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's certainly something that people, I know when I was around 15, 16, I struggled a bit with like my identity and knowing where I put myself and everything. So that is so important. And I love that. I love that so much.
And I think it's really natural to question those things and wrestle with, am I? So there's nothing wrong in that either.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's having the right voices speaking into and taking the time to just to apply truth to your life, as opposed to spending so much time worrying about what other people think of you.
I sort of surrounding yourself as well by people who can speak truth into you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and friends and so on. It's so important. It's so important at such a young age.
And actually, I would even encourage people, like, find out who, look around you, like look around you in your life, and who are the people who you respect, like who are a little bit older and maybe a little bit wiser, and you look up to and be like, I'd love to be like them one day, and not in a worshipping way, but it's recognizing who's ahead of you. Like we all have people who are a little bit further along the line in this, and actually it's so invaluable to glean from them, because they have wisdom, they have truth that they can speak into your life. And I had those people in my life who I looked up to, and I would spend the time just hanging out with, just like being in the same space as them, asking them questions, getting to know them, like learning from them. So I encourage you to do that too. Like, who are those people?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today. Do you want to let us know where people can find you, find more about what you do or anything?
Absolutely. So if you want to read my book, it's called Broken by Beauty, and you can find it on Amazon. There's a Kindle version as well as the paperback available. I'm on all social media stuff. I'm Joy Attmore. So actually, when I wrote the book, I was Farrington. Changed, so I need to do something about that. But but my Yeah, my handle is Joy Attmore. So please come follow me. I write, so I have a blog, which is the Beauty for Ashes movement.com, and you can follow me along there. And I write regularly on lots of different topics, from identity to God's heart for those who've been sexually exploited, to just day-to-day ins and outs of being a woman, being someone who loves God, and trying to do this life. So I'd love to be in community with you. Please feel free to follow me.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
xRhythms.